A white woman took a seat meant for a 9-year-old black boy, and soon discovered he was no ordinary child, but the son of the airline's owner. "I'm sorry, dear, you must be mistaken. This is first class," Patricia Coleman said, her voice sharp as it carried down the aisle. She set her Hermes bag neatly beside her and sat firmly in seat 9A, the very seat shown on the boy's boarding pass. The child, small for his age, clutched the ticket in his shaky hands while other passengers turned to watch. "But ma'am, this is his seat," Daniel Thompson said politely, his calm tone clashing with Patricia's arrogance. He explained that his nanny had helped him find the right place before heading back to economy. Patricia let out a mocking laugh, the kind only the wealthy use when they think something is ridiculous. How adorable. There must be a mistake in the system. Kids like him usually sit in the back where they have space to play. Daniel's deep eyes showed a maturity far beyond his years. He seemed strangely calm, as if he had faced this kind of treatment before and already knew how it would end. "Ma'am, may I show you my boarding pass again?" he asked, holding it out. But Patricia didn't even glance at it. "Don't be stubborn, honey," she sneered. "I'll call the flight attendant to fix this. I'm sure they'll find a more suitable place for him." She pressed the call button with smug satisfaction, while other first-class passengers shifted uncomfortably, whispering but doing nothing. Daniel stood quietly, his small backpack hanging at his side, his calm gaze unsettling Patricia more with every passing second. Children usually cried or argued in moments like this, yet he didn't. Instead, he simply watched her. "Why are you staring at me like that?" Patricia asked, her confidence slipping. "Where are your parents?" "My father is busy today," Daniel answered softly, "but I'm certain he'll be interested to hear how I was treated on his flight." Patricia frowned, the phrase "his flight" striking her strangely, though she brushed it off. After all, what power could a black child traveling alone possibly have? When the flight attendant arrived, looking tense, Patricia wasted no time. "This child is in the wrong seat. Clearly the system made a mistake. Please move him, preferably far from here." Daniel handed over his boarding pass without a word. The attendant studied it, then looked from Daniel to the seat Patricia had claimed, her expression shifting uneasily. "Ma'am," she began carefully, "this boarding pass does in fact say seat 9A, and there's also a special note." "What note?" Patricia cut her off sharply. The attendant glanced at Daniel, then back at the pass, her face changing. I need to check with the captain." "Excuse me." She hurried off, leaving Patricia suddenly uneasy. Why did everyone seem nervous? And why did that little boy keep watching her with eyes that seemed to hold secrets far beyond his years? "What a touching story," Patricia sneered, her words dripping with sarcasm. "But that doesn't change the fact that you don't belong here. Maybe your mother should have also taught you to know your place." The cruelty of her remark made several passengers gasp aloud. A businessman in the front row turned in his seat and said firmly, "Ma'am, that is completely unacceptable." But then something remarkable happened. Instead of shrinking back in shame or bursting into tears, Daniel lifted his chin and squared his shoulders. His gaze locked onto Patricia's, so steady and intense that she instinctively pulled back. "You're right," he said calmly. "My mother did teach me about knowing my place. She told me my place is anywhere I have the right to be, and that I should never let fear or ignorance from others make me forget that." Patricia, realizing she was losing control, quickly tried another approach. "You're all exaggerating," she said loudly. "I am a senior consultant with Coleman & Associates, one of the largest firms in New York. I work with the biggest corporations in the country." She paused, letting her title hang in the air, before pressing on with renewed arrogance. Obviously, there was a glitch in the system. This boy cannot afford first class. Someone probably gave him charity, or maybe airline miles. And now all of us are suffering for it. Daniel remained silent, but a faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. It was not the smile of a child. It was the knowing smile of someone who carried a secret. The captain finally spoke up, his voice steady though his expression was uneasy. "Miss Coleman, I must inform you that this passenger is traveling under special arrangements." His boarding pass was issued directly by airline management with specific instructions for VIP treatment. Patricia blinked, stunned. VIP? A child? The captain nodded, clearly uncomfortable. Yes, we have been ordered to make sure his needs are given the highest priority. These instructions came straight from whose office? Patricia cut in sharply. The captain glanced at Daniel, who gave the slightest shake of his head, signaling silence. Respecting the boy's gesture, the captain said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but I cannot share confidential passenger information. Patricia's face turned red with rage. This is outrageous. I demand a supervisor right now. I demand a full explanation. A child cannot have VIP instructions unless... Her voice trailed off. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. She looked at Daniel, almost as if recognition was trying to surface. But her pride smothered the thought. It doesn't matter who you think you are, or who your parents think they are, she snapped. In the real world, people like you need to accept that there are natural hierarchies. Some are born to lead, and some are born to serve. At that moment, the air in first class shifted. Daniel tilted his head, weighing her words carefully before answering. When he finally spoke, his voice carried an authority no 9-year-old should have. Miss Coleman, you are right about one thing. Some people are truly born to lead. And today, you'll find out exactly what that means. The small smile on his face widened, and Patricia felt a shiver run down her spine. His eyes no longer looked like those of a child. They carried the calm certainty of someone who already knew how this story would end. For the first time, Patricia's confidence wavered, and a terrible question rose inside her. What did this boy know that I don't? She didn't realize that her last cruel remark about natural hierarchies had been overheard not just by fellow passengers, but also by James Morrison, the airline's flight supervisor of 15 years. James knew Daniel very well. For 2 years, he had seen the boy on monthly flights. Always alone, always polite, always carrying that small school backpack that seemed to hide more than it revealed. And he also knew the instructions. Daniel's identity was to remain private until absolutely necessary. Mr. Morrison, a flight attendant whispered urgently as the supervisor arrived. The situation is getting out of hand. Patricia spotted James and immediately assumed victory. Rising with dramatic flair, she declared, Finally, someone with authority. Please end this nonsense. This child is clearly in the wrong place, and your staff has been completely incompetent in handling it. James looked at Daniel. The boy gave a tiny, nearly invisible nod, a signal only someone close to him would recognize. It seemed to say, let her keep digging her own grave. Miss Coleman, James said calmly, I understand your concerns, but before I make any decision, I need to verify some important details. Patricia mistook James's calm pause as hesitation and pressed harder. Details? What details? It's obvious. This boy doesn't belong here. Maybe someone gave him charity, or worse. This could be one of those fraud cases you hear about on the news. Daniel stayed calm, but James noticed something in his eyes. It wasn't anger. It was patience. The kind of patience that lets someone watch another dig themselves into a hole too deep to escape. My father is working, Daniel said softly. He always tells me work is about responsibility, not just showing up. Work, Patricia scoffed. What kind of work? Let me guess. Some manual labor job that barely pays the bills, and now you're trying to live above your means. That was the moment James Morrison decided he'd had enough. The instructions had been to keep things confidential, but he couldn't stand by while a child was being verbally attacked. Ms. Coleman, he said firmly, his voice carrying authority that made Patricia falter. You should know your words are being recorded by the aircraft security system. Discrimination based on class or background is a serious violation of our company's policies. Patricia froze, startled. Discrimination? I wasn't discriminating. I was just pointing out facts. The facts, James corrected, are that this young passenger has a valid ticket issued through official channels, with special VIP instructions coming directly from the company president. From the president? Patricia stammered, her confidence cracking. Daniel, who had stayed quiet, finally spoke again. His voice was low, but it carried surprising weight for his age. Ms. Coleman, may I ask you a question? Patricia, still distracted by the mention of the president, nodded absent-mindedly. Do you really believe some people are born better than others? The bluntness of the question caught her off guard. Any honest answer would trap her. Well, it's not about being better. It's about social reality, boundaries, knowing your place. I see, Daniel said, nodding thoughtfully. So you believe a 9-year-old black child cannot come from a wealthy or successful family? Patricia realized she was being cornered, but her pride pushed her on. Statistically speaking, it's unlikely, isn't it? Let's be realistic. Statistically, Daniel repeated slowly, as if carving the word into her memory. So you made all these assumptions about me based only on my skin color and age. James watched in awe. At just 9 years old, Daniel was handling this like a seasoned lawyer, guiding Patricia straight into her own contradictions. I didn't mean it like that. Patricia tried to backpedal. Don't worry, Daniel said gently, his smile both kind and unsettling. People make mistakes when they assume. My father always says the biggest lessons in life come when we realize how wrong we've been. The phrase my father always says sent a chill through Patricia. The confidence in those words didn't match the poor, neglected child she had imagined. James seized a moment. Ms. Coleman, the captain has requested to speak with you before takeoff regarding the implications of your recorded comments. Speak with me? About what? Patricia snapped. To review the impact of your statements, which are now on record. James replied smoothly. Daniel turned to the window, watching the airport lights glow in the late afternoon. In a few hours, he'd be home, where his father would want to hear about his school trip. But right now, something bigger was happening, a lesson that might need to be revealed in full. Mr. Morrison, Daniel said, his young voice carrying unexpected authority, I think it's time Mrs. Coleman learns the truth about who's really sitting in seat 9A. Patricia's stomach twisted. Something about the way he spoke sent alarms racing through her head. But it was too late. She had gone too far. Deep down, a terrifying thought was forming. What if I just made the biggest mistake of my life? Daniel stood, his posture confident, his eyes locked on Patricia. Ma'am, before I reveal who I am, I want to ask one last question. Do you believe you said all those things to the child just because of the color of his skin? Patricia's blood ran cold. She stammered, I don't understand what you mean. Daniel turned calmly to James. Mr. Morrison, please call my father. Tell him I need to speak with him about how I was treated on his flight today. James nodded respectfully and dialed. Mr. Thompson? Yes, sir. Daniel is here on the Miami flight and needs to speak with you about an incident on board. Patricia's horror deepened. The respectful tone James used, the fact that he had Daniel's father's personal number. It all began to make sense in a way she didn't want it to. Dad, Daniel said into the phone, his young voice suddenly sounding small again compared to the calm authority he had shown. I'm okay, but a woman told me people like me are born to serve, while others are born to lead. On the other end, the passengers could hear a man's furious voice. Someone said that to you, son? She also said a child like me doesn't belong in first class, and that my mother should have taught me my place. Daniel continued, his eyes never leaving Patricia's pale face. The voice on the phone grew sharper. Daniel, let me speak to that person. Daniel extended the phone toward Patricia. He wants to talk to you, Miss Coleman. I don't need to speak to anyone, Patricia stammered, shaking. But James stepped in firmly. Ms. Coleman, when the majority owner of the airline asked for a conversation, it isn't optional. The words hit her like thunder. Majority owner? Daniel nodded. My father is Michael Thompson, CEO of Thompson Aviation Holdings. Our company owns 85% of this airline. Patricia's entire world shattered. Michael Thompson was a legend in aviation, one of the wealthiest, most powerful men in the country, and she had spent the last hour humiliating his only son. Her hands trembled as she took the phone. Ms. Coleman, the voice on the other end said, calm but ice cold, my son has just told me very disturbing things about how you treated him. And Mr. Thompson, Patricia stuttered. I didn't know. If I had known who he was. Oh, so you only treat children with respect if you know their parents are powerful? The words cut through Patricia like a knife. The question struck Patricia like a blade. Such a simple sentence, yet it exposed her entire mindset. She scrambled to defend herself. Sir, it was all a terrible misunderstanding. I would never. I have black friends. I support charities. But Michael Thompson's voice cut her off, cold and sharp. Miss Coleman, my son recorded every word you said. His phone was connected to our family security system. I now have proof of every cruel comment you directed at a 9-year-old child. Every insult. Every claim that he didn't belong in first class. Every remark about people being born to serve. James Morrison stood silently, watching Patricia unravel. In all his 15 years in the airline industry, he had never seen someone dig themselves so deep into disgrace. Michael's voice pressed on. Our company's public relations team is already preparing a statement. We will be making it very clear. Our airline has zero tolerance for discrimination, and your words to my son will be used as the perfect example of what we refuse to accept on our flights. Patricia sank back into her seat. Her career, her reputation, her carefully built image, shattered in an instant. She could already imagine the headlines. The recording would spread online, shared, dissected, replayed endlessly. Please, she whispered, desperate. I can fix this. I'll donate to charity. I'll apologize. Daniel gently took the phone back. His voice was calm, almost too mature for his age. The only thing you can do now, Miss Coleman, is learn from this. Dad, I can handle the rest. On the other end, Michael's voice softened. Of course, son. I'm proud of you. I'll see you at home. Daniel ended the call and turned to Patricia. His young face carried both forgiveness and wisdom. My mother really did teach me about knowing my place. My place is to treat everyone with dignity, no matter how they treat me. Tears streamed down Patricia's face. She realized her downfall hadn't come from money or power, but from the decency of the very child she tried to humiliate. Mr. Morrison, Daniel asked with a childlike smile, "Can I sit in my seat now? I still have a book to finish before Miami." James nodded, and Daniel quietly settled into seat 9A. Patricia, meanwhile, sat frozen, knowing she had just starred in what would soon become one of the most infamous cases of in-flight discrimination. The truth of who she really was had been exposed, not by executives or journalists, but by a child with courage and grace. As the plane prepared for takeoff, a silent question lingered among the passengers. How many other children had endured this kind of humiliation, without the power to turn it into a lesson the world would never forget? 6 months later, Patricia Coleman sat in a small, plain apartment, far from the luxuries she once flaunted. The video of her confrontation with Daniel had gone viral, crossing 5 million views. Her firm had cut ties with her immediately. Clients had abandoned her, and her name had become a permanent stain online. Type it into Google, and the headline appeared instantly. Woman who attacked 9-year-old loses everything after finding out who he really was. Her career was gone. Her so-called friends vanished. She lived only on the scraps she'd managed to save before her collapse. Meanwhile, Daniel celebrated his 10th birthday, surrounded by family. His father watched proudly, knowing his son had shown more wisdom and strength than many adults ever could. "Dad," Daniel asked quietly that night, "do you think Mrs. Coleman learned her lesson?" Michael smiled at his son's thoughtful question. "What do you think?" "I hope so," Daniel said softly. "Mom always told me that people only change when they know what it feels like to be treated badly. Maybe now she understands." In the months that followed, Thompson Aviation launched a national program to fight discrimination in air travel, using Daniel's story as a teaching tool. Schools shared it in classrooms, and children learned that no matter where they came from, they deserved respect. Daniel himself grew wiser. He didn't become bitter or angry. Instead, he helped classmates who were bullied, becoming known for his calmness and empathy. Patricia, on the other hand, began volunteering at organizations that fought racism. It was unpaid work, far from the glamorous career she once had, but for the first time in years, she was truly learning. During a court-ordered therapy session connected to a lawsuit filed by Michael Thompson, She finally admitted, "I ruined an innocent child's life because I couldn't stand the thought of someone different from me succeeding. And in the end, I destroyed my own." The story of Daniel and Patricia spread far beyond that flight. It became a lesson about dignity, justice, and how cruelty can backfire. Daniel grew up knowing his painful experience had sparked something bigger, a reminder to the world that strength lies not in putting others down, but in lifting ourselves up with grace. His greatest revenge wasn't Patricia's downfall. It was showing that hatred can be defeated with intelligence, and prejudice can be dismantled with dignity. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And in the comments, share your own experience. Have you ever seen or faced prejudice? How did you respond? Your story might inspire someone else to choose dignity, even in the face of injustice.